Oliver and Barbara Johnson are spending a quiet evening at home when Barbara asks Oliver an unusual question in a casual tone. "What would you think if I cheated on you?" Oliver replies, "I wouldn't like it." Although questions like this don't seem to be common in most marriages, for the Johnsons it's nothing out of the ordinary, because they've been together for 43 years, and their conversations often touch on topics that might surprise others. Barbara, in her still attracts attention with her confident and attractive appearance. She is a university professor who teaches various philosophy courses, but she is best known for her course on human sexuality, which fills up quickly every semester. The couple talk about sex more frankly than many other couples, and they often discuss their desires, fantasies, and needs frankly, which is rare in most relationships. But Barbara's question still caught Oliver off guard, and she added, "What if the person is Ben Affleck? After all, we're talking about a celebrity." After 43 years of marriage, Oliver has learned not to be too surprised. He responds cooperatively, "If it's Ben Affleck, I don't think I would mind." Barbara claps her hands in delight and exclaims, "Wonderful." This sudden enthusiasm. He asks whatever Oliver answers. The tone is more cautious. Barbara smiles reassuringly and says, "Dear, don't worry. I've never met Ben Affleck and don't even know where to start. But this leads to my next question." Oliver begins to feel uneasy, realizing that the conversation is heading towards tricky territory. Barbara continued, "If I did have an affair with Ben Affleck, how do you think you would feel? Let's be serious. People always make an exception for celebrities. But I want to know your real reaction." Relax. Think she's probably just gathering material for her sexology course. Oliver calmed down and told Barbara honestly, "I need to think about it. I'm not sure how I would feel." Barbara smiles, clearly willing to give him time. "Okay, dear, take your time. I'll go make some coffee." Oliver realizes this is her subtle way of hinting that he should expect a considered answer. And despite his inner discomfort, he begins to think about the issue seriously. If she slept with Ben Affleck, he would be angry and sad, but a fleeting affair with a celebrity would be worth ending their 43-year marriage. Barbara had been an excellent wife, mother, and companion throughout their life together. When Barbara returned, she had the familiar expression of a teacher, indicating that it was time to give an answer. She sat down and looked at him expectantly. Barbara said, "To be honest, I would feel hurt and betrayed, especially if you kept it a secret. Even if I knew beforehand, it would still be painful." Barbara nodded and listened to his words attentively. "I understand, but is it enough to destroy our marriage?" she asked more seriously this time. Oliver thought about it for a moment and then replied, "No, I don't think it would destroy our marriage, but it would certainly cause a lot of pain." She seemed to be taking his words seriously, but her posture suggested that she wanted to ask another question. "What if it wasn't Ben Affleck, but Charlie Miller from my university department?" Oliver jokes, "Shoot you both and be happy in prison for the rest of your lives." Most people might think Barbara would be uncomfortable with such a response, but Oliver knows his wife better than that, and she remains as calm as ever. "I understand, dear, but don't worry. I won't do anything to Charlie that I wouldn't have done anyway." Now you might be thinking, "Oh no, Oliver's in danger," but trust me, you don't need to worry. I have been through the ups and downs of marriage for some time now, and I would say I am something of an expert. To be honest, marriage is not as complicated as many people think. There are certainly some key points, but at the end of the day, Ben and I have a very close relationship, something that most women never experience. Although if the rumors are true, then many have already had their chance. Barbara always listens attentively and nods in agreement, resting her chin in her hand. "But when it comes to Charlie Miller, I've seen the way he behaves around you at every party. Do you remember our conversation about him earlier? You and that mistletoe. He's been trying to get you into bed for a long time. He can't take his eyes off your breasts, like a moth to a flame. He's already been divorced twice. Ever wonder why? I'm beginning to wonder if you're trying to humiliate me in front of everyone we know." Barbara tries to interrupt, but I raise my hand to indicate that it's not the right time. "Barbara, seriously, do you really think that jerk can keep a secret? He'll probably post all the details online for everyone to see. Once I start talking, I can't stop. If you slept with Charlie Miller, that would be the ultimate betrayal. I probably won't, but our marriage would definitely be over." I pause to catch my breath and thank you for your advice. I add sarcastically that you are always so helpful. Barbara gets up gently, pats my arm and gives me a quick kiss on the cheek. I'm going to go to bed. Are you coming right away? I reply, right away. I just need to finish reading this chapter. She looked at me curiously. What is it that has you so captivated these days? The book. The chapter I'm reading explains why some merchants prefer to use mules instead of oxen to transport their wagons. I couldn't help but let a little excitement show, and Barbara, not very enthusiastic, gave a forced smile. Now I understand why you're so fascinated. Good night, dear. As she left the room, I caught her roll her eyes slightly. Not everyone appreciates the refined art of historical narrative, but I didn't particularly care. I just berated myself mentally for getting into a conversation I should have avoided, but I knew it wasn't over yet. Over the years, I'd learned to read Barbara, and it reminded me of our brief holiday when I'd asked her to pack just one suitcase. Barbara showed up with 2 kids in a huge antique Saratoga suitcase, left to her by her grandmother. Barbara beamed like a Cheshire cat as they tried to wedge it into our SUV, which I swear, buckled under the weight. I probably would have been better off not specifying what my punishment was. Barbara placed the book on my lap, darling, and I wanted to revisit our conversation from the previous day. I'm not surprised, she says. As I mentioned before, I knew it wouldn't just end there. What would your reaction be if I told you I wanted to have an affair with a woman, like Tracy Wilson? I closed the book. The mules and oxen will just have to wait. Barbara has my full attention, so you just tell me straight, no secrets, no affairs behind my back. She watches my reaction carefully, then replies, You know everything, who knows? Maybe you even took part. I waited anxiously for the answer, which turned out to be yes. In retrospect, I should have seen the trap I was walking into, but obviously you had never met Tracy. My thoughts drifted to some indecent fantasies about the possibility of a threesome with her and my wife. Wait, don't judge me too harshly, I'm just being honest. After all, okay, I admit, realistically, this situation could ultimately give me a heart attack. But Oliver, it's really the same as what happened with Ben and Charlie. This time I didn't have to spend as much time thinking as I did last night. And I'm not sure how upset I would be, but I think my emotions depend on my role. My reaction was tinged with a trace of pride and almost imperceptible hope. She rolled her eyes, even more exaggeratedly than the night before. Message received. So your understanding of fidelity has more to do with how threatened you feel by my actions than any real moral compass, she retorted. Ouch, that hurt. I fell silent, deciding against responding. I had dug myself a deep enough hole already. She sat there staring at me, tapping her foot on the chair, waiting for me to say something. It was time to face the music. Barbara, why are you so insistent on having an affair with that nasty Miller? I asked her. She started to say that Charlie was a big liar, of course, but for a reason that wasn't what you thought. It took me a while to understand what she meant. I know, you probably already guessed, but my mind wasn't on it. Isabel sat there dumbfounded, without saying a word. Finally, she decided to have mercy and explain further. Honey, this isn't some passionate affair, it's part of my research into human sexuality. I think it will give me valuable insights. Dry mouth, dizzy head. Darling, we both know that your problem is not morality, but weak male pride. She continued, By the way, Charlie poses no threat to us whatsoever, just like Ben and Tracy. Like it or not, this is going to happen. Next weekend I'm going away with Charlie from Friday to Sunday, and I'll be back on Sunday night. It won't do any harm, and it won't change our relationship. She was talking to me as if I were a disobedient child. Thomas, you're not going to leave me because of this, are you? It's just a weekend, just for research, and then everything will go back to normal. When I get back, I can even treat you to your favorite metaphor about mules and cows. Barbara, I don't own you and I can't stop you, but if you insist on doing this, it will be a turning point that will leave its mark on you, whatever happens. Responsibility, you're right. I won't put a gun to your head or Barbara's, but our marriage. I'm not sure about that. I try to remain calm and think about what this would look like to your colleagues. I immediately regret saying that, and realize that most of her colleagues have probably already seen this person. Barbara, I continue, do you remember that story I once told you? The woman who was charming the party crowd was talking to a charming stranger, and he asked her, Madam, if I gave you $1 million, would you sleep with me? The woman thought about it for a moment in surprise, and finally answered, I think I would. And if I gave you $10? He continued. She answered, No way. What do you take me for? We've solved the main problem, madam. Now it's just a question of minor details. I walked up behind her and shouted, Barbara, if you carry on like this, sooner or later everyone will find out exactly who you really are. I paused for a moment, then added, That's all I have to say. Do what you think is right. I decided not to bring up the subject again, and from then on I didn't bring it up in conversation with her. As expected, the tension in the house lasted for a week. Barbara's stubbornness prevailed, and she clearly had no intention of returning to the subject. Conversation, darling, I'm off to Charlie's. Don't worry, we'll be fine. She tried to reassure me, although the tension was palpable. What are you planning to do while I'm away? I hope it's something fun. Maybe you'll go down to the basement and fiddle with your train set. Barbara quickly jokes, kisses me on the cheek before I go out, and the door closes behind her. I laugh and shout, Don't worry about me, I might be with Madison Garcia. Madison Garcia is the only woman I know with bigger breasts than Barbara, and she hasn't even hesitated to flirt with me a few times in front of Barbara. I buried my head in the newspaper and pretended I was engrossed in reading it. Yes, believe it or not, some of us still read physical newspapers. I heard a creaking noise, looked up and saw Barbara standing on the doorstep, staring at me as if daring me to do something. I gave her a wry smile, folded up the newspaper and gave her a wink. She didn't say a word, but slowly took off her sweater and walked straight into the bedroom. As she passed me, she paused for a moment and said, You know her breasts aren't real. Without waiting for a response, she continued on to the bedroom, opened her suitcase, and acted as if nothing had happened. This scene reminded me of an old joke about a farmer who sold a talking mule to a carnival owner. Naturally, the owner demanded proof that the mule could actually talk before buying it. The performer paid and thought he had struck gold, but a few weeks later, the disappointed owner returned for a refund, claiming that the mule had stopped talking and that all his attempts to get it to speak again had been in vain. The farmer took a thick stick and said it would make a good baseball bat. Then he hit the mule on the head. The mule immediately began to talk. The farmer turned to the owner and said, Sometimes you have to get its attention first. Remember this funny story? I reopened the newspaper and turned to the sports page to check the results of the game. This is the end of the story. If you like it, please press the like button and subscribe to the channel.